Well, hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the She Doesn't Settle podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Travis. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Before I dive into this, let's just say, topic that a lot of women are struggling with, experiencing, have had challenges with in the past, perhaps. I want to ask you one tiny little favor. I am really working to grow this podcast in terms of audience listeners. And the way that we're able to do that is when you rate and review on whatever listening platform you use. It lets other listeners know about the podcast. It shows up in their feed. It also allows them to know what you're getting out of it or to see that people enjoy it. So if you've been hanging around for a while, or if you're new and you're loving it and you've kind of binged a whole bunch of stuff, please take 30 seconds, go rate. If you have time to write a review, cool. If not, just click the little stars. I would really appreciate it. It is my goal to just continue to grow my audience and be able to reach more and more people with this work. So it would be a huge help for me. Okay. That said, I would like to dive into our topic for today, which is body image or body insecurities, however you want to define it. And the reason I want to do this is there's a little bit of a myth that women don't experience body dissatisfaction or disordered eating as they get older. It's often minimized, which is definitely evident by the lack of visibility in the media, but studies suggest quite the opposite. This podcast episode is for you, whether you're in midlife or you're on the younger side of adulthood and you are struggling with how you feel about yourself and your body. So it's for everybody. But let's talk about some of this evidence. I'm going to give you a slew of research numbers just so you can get an idea of where things are at. So last year, the Mental Health Foundation surveyed respondents who had experienced high levels of stress, and they revealed that 47% of 18 to 24-year-olds, 36% of all women, and almost 1 in 5 people age 55 plus had experienced stress over their body image to the extent of being overwhelmed and unable to cope in the last year. It was clearly an issue that needed more attention. So let's talk about some other numbers. 1 in 5 adults, 20%, felt shame. Just over 1/3, 34%, felt down or low, and 19% felt disgusted because of their body image in the last year. Another study showed that body image dissatisfaction in midlife has increased from 25% in 1972 to 56% in 1997. Okay, it is 2023. We've got tons of social media, all kinds of changes in terms of exposure to things, on top of advertising that has always been a contributor. This number, I would guess, is even higher based on what we know about social media, and we'll get into those numbers a little bit later. Another study with 774 women suggested that 40% of the women reported that the voice in their heads did not get kinder with age. Sorry, ladies, this means there is work to do. Doesn't mean it's not possible to fix it, but there's definitely work to do. How about social media? Just over 1 in 5 adults said images on social media caused them to worry about their body image. Just over 1 in 5 adults said images used in advertising had caused them to worry about their body image. And just over 1/3 of adults said that they had felt anxious, depressed, because of their body image. And 1 in 8 experience suicidal thoughts or feelings because of concerns about their body image. Clearly, action is needed to build and promote positive body image and to support good mental health and well-being in relation to our bodies. Everyone has a right to feel comfortable and confident in their bodies. And these reports, these numbers highlight a lot of challenges that we have, right? And things that we really need to work through, like effective regulation of how body image is portrayed. What could that look like, right? The need for social media awareness in terms of how it impacts us and what's out there. Taking a public health approach to body image by training frontline health and education staff. Individually being more aware of how we can take care of ourselves and others in relation to body image. Now, for those of you who might be new around here, I have my own story around this and a very severe eating disorder. I will put a couple links to some previous episodes where I talk about this. We're not diving into that today. What we're going to talk about are the aspects of body image, factors that contribute to it, and then what the hell we do about it on our end in terms of improving how we feel about ourselves. So let's talk about the 4 aspects of body image. The first is perceptual. This is what a lot of people think about when they think of body image, the way you see yourself, which is not always accurate in terms of how you actually are seen by others, right? It's our own perception, which can be very distorted. I was talking to my dad the other day, and he does a lot of photography. If you need a photographer, let me know. And he says that when he does his edits, women are so critical of what they look like. And that's, just one little snippet of things, right? There's the affective, which is the way you feel about the way you look, concerning your weight, your shape, your overall appearance. Then there's cognitive. Those are the thoughts and beliefs you have about your body. An example would be, I'd feel better about myself if I was thinner. I feel better about myself when my hair gets colored because there's no gray, right? And then the behavioral piece. These are the things you do concerning how you perceive yourself. So if you're insecure about your body, you might engage in destructive behaviors, right? Yo-yo dieting, excessive exercise, I can talk, in the hope that it will change how you see yourself. Or take it a step further, you could isolate yourself from others because you're embarrassed to be seen. We see this on the extreme spectrum of things. So those are the 4 aspects of body image. It's not just about how you perceive yourself, right? It's about how you feel about the way you look, the thoughts and beliefs you have around it, and then what you do, your behaviors because of that. Many of you have probably heard me talk about the cycle of our thoughts and our feelings, and this is a perfect example, right? We have a thought about our body, our appearance, which creates a feeling. In this case, many emotions that are not kind, right? And then that results in how we behave, our actions. And then that gives us a certain result, right? So if we're behaving in a destructive behavior, the results are not going to be positive. Okay. I'm going to quickly go through the factors that affect your body image. These are not going to be shocking revelations. These are things you probably know, but they're just good reminders, right? Particularly as we get older. So a lot of times we think of body image, eating disorders, disordered eating, excessive exercise as like something that young women are obsessed with, right? It's a youthful thing. But as we get older, it's a challenge for women to accept being different from the youthful ideal that's represented in advertising and media, right? That's out front more. Older women are virtually invisible in the media. And there are very few positive role models when it comes to women who are representing themselves as who they are purely. So, where are those strong images of older women that are natural, right, and accepting of themselves? We're seeing a little bit more of it because there is a little bit of a shift happening as we start to have more of these conversations, but we've got a long way to go. And this invisibility affects our self esteem. It was found that women who expressed feeling virtually invisible had negative feelings to the changes in their bodies as they aged. And they were also more aware that in our culture, youthful bodies are idealized, thin bodies are idealized, right? So, with that, we know that unattainable media images are factors, right? Whether it's TV, advertising, magazines, social media. We know now that most of that is not actually what those people look like, right? There's airbrushing and editing to appear thinner, more athletic, younger, right? There are models and actors who have admitted that the media images of themselves are not accurate. Yet we still are measuring ourselves up against these images that are actually not realistic, right? So, very important to continually remind yourself of this and stop comparing yourself to these unrealistic images, because it just makes you feel like you need to change who you are, right? The other thing that plays a huge factor in body image as we age are the physical changes we experience, right? Age is inevitable. Aging is inevitable, right? We can do a lot of work to maintain our internal health, right? Through diet and exercise and getting enough sleep and managing stress, which are things we talk about all the time, right? But the exterior is a little bit more difficult we can't stop time, right? And we experience significant changes as we age. I mean, I remember when I turned 40, my eyes suddenly stopped working. There's a lot of stuff that happens, right? And these changes could be weight fluctuation because of hormone changes in women, right? Premenopause, menopausal, these all play a part. Skin changes, right? Wrinkling, a little bit looser. We see the lines. And distribution of weight changes, right? As we get older, it's just part of it. And even like our hair, right, can change color. So many things. We see it as we look in the mirror, as we see photos of our younger selves, right? Those are reminders. And if we take it too personally, they can have a negative emotional impact, particularly when they're combined with major life changes like having kids, right? Going through pregnancy, your body's going to change. It's not going to be the same again, right? I learned that. Or a relationship ending, maybe a divorce or a separation, that can cause a lot of emotional pain and strife. Children leaving home, getting older, as we get older, losing people. So going through grief and those types of things. Those are factors, because what happens as we look for something that we can change, we're overwhelmed, then we find this preoccupation, right? So I know of women who have gone through a nasty divorce or have had a child, or maybe they're taking care of an aging parent, and that stress causes them to look at themselves differently, try to change themselves, improve their image, right? Focus on something they can control. And that's where that comes from. And then menopause in general, right? Those physical changes too. The other factors that, so a common reaction to all of that is compensatory. Another factor that comes into play in terms of response to this is behaviors to feel better, right? Feel in control. I said that, but I'm saying it again. And many women will resort to actually paying for those changes, right? So plastic surgery, Botox, all of the things they can do to alter body skin, which itself can cause feelings of shame and guilt. But listen, a lot of people do it. And it's just a part of this, right? A part of the culture that has created this idea that we're supposed to stay young and looking that way, even though we're getting older, like, right? The other factors that can affect body image are your personality, right? People who tend to have perfectionistic tendencies, high achievers, lots of you listening, or if you're just rigid and you're thinking very black and white, those can put you at higher risk of developing body insecurity because you're probably very critical of yourself already. Family history. So if you grew up in an environment, excuse me, if you grew up in an environment where family members regularly dieted, maybe yo-yo dieted, criticized their bodies or others' bodies or appearances, then this can just be an inner narrative that you have in terms of how you judge yourself. And then finally, anyone who is already experiencing mental health issues like anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, even depression, probably more likely to have a negative body image. It's not this comes with this, it's just, it could then potentially happen. Okay, so we know that there's a lot of emotions that circulate around insecurities around body and appearance. Some of those are depression, anxiety, shame, low self-esteem, high criticism, right? So what do we do about this, right? Like, you might be nodding your head and saying, yeah, that's me, or I know somebody who's really struggling, right? And maybe you've dealt with this in the past, and you've moved through it, which, if that's the case, I'd love to hear from you and hear what helped you. So let's talk about some things that you can do. I read an article in preparing for this episode, well, several articles, but one that really I found to be really interesting and I loved. And in her article, I'll have to find it and add it to the show notes. She talked about finding role models, which I love. Finding and surrounding yourself with women who are kind of flipping the bird at these expectations, right? Not in a like, F this, I don't really care about myself at all, and I'm not going to do anything. Not in that way, but in a more, I'm going to age gracefully. I'm going to present myself as confident and beautiful and grounded exactly as who I am, right? Women who don't buy into the myths of youthful aging, right? And instead are just showing up as themselves. I have a neighbor, I love her to death. Sometimes she listens to this episode. So, Erica, you're listening to this episode. This is for you. I always tell her how envious I am because she's letting her hair naturally go gray and not coloring it. And she looks amazing. And I'm very envious of her because I'm just not there yet. I'm going to get there. I'm just not there yet. And she is a role model to me in that way. I see her, she's confident, she rocks it. And that's somebody that I want to surround myself with, right? Being around women who just, feel good about who they are in their own skin and aren't trying to change themselves to fit into some ridiculous expectation. Okay, number 2, the self-talk, the inner narrative. There's 2 things here. One, we have to work on how we talk about ourselves, first and foremost, right? That being catching those negative thoughts, challenging them, asking ourselves, is this thought useful? Is it helpful to me? No, it's not helpful for me to shame my body because it doesn't look a certain way. What can I think instead, right? I've talked about this many times on past episodes because this is the number one thing that has helped me in every area of my life, especially how I feel about my body. And that is coming up with a neutral thought, not a positive affirmation, bunch of BS that your brain cannot latch onto. Science shows us this. But something that is a little bit better. We call it a ladder approach, right? Just one step above what you're telling yourself. So that in that cycle of thought, emotion, behavior, result, you don't derail yourself by having that negative thought and creating this emotion of shame or whatever it is, and then behaving in a response that is detrimental, unhealthy, right? So if the thought is, oh my God, I'm so fat, or oh my God, I look so old, not helpful, not useful, right? The response to that, when you hear it, you're not going to catch all of them, by the way, you're human, and we have a lot of thoughts, is something a little bit better, right? Maybe it's this body has gotten me through so much and I'm grateful for it. Or my age shows my wisdom, right? Just like something that can just tweak so that you feel a little bit better. You're getting yourself out of that shame spiral and moving forward. Okay? The part 2 to this is being mindful about how you talk about other people's bodies, whether it's in casual conversation with friends and family or, to yourself, right? Consistently saying things that reinforce that youth and being slim is like what the goal is not helpful. So saying things like they look so old or something like that, it just feeds into the inner critic and the belief that there's only one way to navigate this, right? Okay, sorry. My allergies are super fun today. Don't know if any of you are challenged with that right now. Okay, the third one is to appreciate the ways your body supports you. I really try to do this as much as I can because I think that after having kids, especially, we can be really critical because stuff changes, right? Clothes pre-baby are very different than after baby, at least in my experience. And the best way to navigate this, or as we age, or we're going through menopause or perimenopause, right? Is to really like focus on and put the perspective on, what has my body done for me? What am I grateful to my body for, right? I'm thankful to my body all the time that it allows me to run the miles I run. And that's a huge one for me. Oftentimes, when I'm criticizing my body because of what the kids have done to it, it's really about like, man, you brought human beings into this world, right? So doing things like that that allow you to praise your body, to acknowledge and appreciate it for what it does, it helps you breathe, helps you digest food, it heals from injuries and illness, right? It allows you to interact with people. Um, it allows you to read and speak. So, you know, whether it's something that you're able to do in your work or in your personal life, like focus on appreciating that. I've talked in the past about how our human brain does a really good job of pretty much focusing on all the things that aren't going well. And that just leads us to focusing on more and more things that aren't going well. And then we fail to pay attention to the things that are, to appreciate the things that we have that are working out. This is not toxic positivity. This is just the facts, right? We do have a lot of good happening. We just tend to focus on all the negative. So this is a really good exercise and practice to get into. And maybe it's every night you do some sort of journal list where you're writing down what you appreciate about your body and how it supports you. So rather than like a gratitude list overall, it's gratitude for your body. I really like that. Okay, number 4, I want you to think about, well, 2 things. Your relationship with exercise, right, in general, and your goals around health. Making sure that those efforts are attainable and sustainable, right? So getting out of the obsessiveness, the all or nothing, the 0 to 100 approach, and really working day to day. And if you truly are trying to lose weight for health reasons, a lot of people are, right? That is great. What I would encourage you to do is to focus less on the number on the scale and more on the activity and the behaviors that you're looking to do to change. Because when you focus on that number on the scale, it can get you in that spiral around your body image. And we want to just focus on the other stuff, right? So try to shift your perspective in that. Not to say you don't want to be or need to lose the weight, but in order to kind of keep yourself from going into that negative drain, criticizing yourself for how slow it's taking you or whatever, focus on today. What am I doing today? I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to eat a healthy meal, whatever it is, instead of that like number. Okay, number 5, which is a very important one, especially given the statistics that I shared earlier, and that is figure out your relationship with social media. I want to share one little stat with you. Teens and adults who reduced their social media use by 50% for just a few weeks saw significant improvement in how they felt about their weight and their overall appearance compared to peers who maintain consistent levels of social media use. This is from the American Psychological Association. First of all, what you see on social media is rarely real, right? Many of those images presented online have filters. I mean, I can't believe what you can do to yourself on social media. It's insane. A lot of those images are selling things, right? And if you're following accounts that cause you to criticize your own body or your appearance, that's not healthy, right? So think about unfollowing those accounts, maybe taking a social media break for a while, maybe doing some spring cleaning with apps on your phone that are not helpful, right? There's a lot of research around social media and body image and how that's impacting people. And it's just like advertising, right? It's creating this idea of what the expectation is, what beauty is, right? And we've got to get out of that and really set some boundaries around how you're interacting with it and engaging in it. Not to say you shouldn't be on social media, but if you have behaviors on it that are contributing to how you feel about yourself, cut that shit out. Like, unfollow those people. Stop getting on there all the time, right? And remember that people rarely put up photos or videos of themselves when they're not looking good, except me, with the exception of me. I keep it real. If you follow me on social media, you know that it's how I am that day. That's it. That's it. But it really is amazing what capabilities there are on these platforms to completely change what you look like. So keep that in mind and just think about how you can healthfully engage in those platforms so that you're protecting how you feel about yourself and improving how you feel about yourself, right? You can always get back on it. You can always re-engage at a later point, but see how that feels, see what it does. Okay, finally, if you are bordering on disordered eating, obsessive exercise, or just spending a lot of time in your head criticizing yourself, and it's causing, depression or anxiety as a result, definitely consider therapy. It's an effective way to go deeper and work through some of these things outside of, some of the stuff we talked about. I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I'm sharing things that you can do on your own, but professional help is always a great idea. As you know, I'm a big believer in therapy. I still am in therapy, and it doesn't hurt. So definitely consider that as an option. I always tell my clients that psychologytoday.com is a great resource in finding a therapist, especially if you live in a city like me, where it's very difficult to find one. You can literally filter based on your location, the type of therapist you want, their experiences and specialties, all of these things, and interview some. Don't just commit to one without, trying a few on. It's like dating. And if you don't like the one that you start with, get rid of them and find another one because you're paying for it and this is your mental health. Okay. I hope this was helpful, insightful. It's definitely an area that I'm passionate about, particularly as I write my book. And I'm hoping that we can continue to improve the landscape in this area. If you want to do some work around your health and your well-being, then definitely let me know. We can hop on a call. I'll put the link in the show notes. 15-minute call. We can discuss where you're at and talk through healthy ways of working towards how you feel about yourself and the behaviors you have in place and improving how you feel overall. Okay. Thank you so much for being with me and being patient as I coughed my way through this episode. I look forward to talking to you next week. All right. Peace out.